here's the example that we're going to do. We already have the answer here, so we have this system. And first we're going to put it in this augmented matrix. And we're going to put it into our REF. By the way, there's the answer that we're looking for. But we're doing this problem just to check, to make sure that we can do it correctly. So the first move we want to make is we want to make the top left number a 1. Easiest way to do this is to switch these two rows. So we're going to switch row 1 and row 2. And that's going to yield 1, 1, negative 1, 3. 3, negative 2, 1, negative 1. And then the last row won't change. Now we have that 3 right here. We want to make that a 0. Well, what do you add to 3 to make it 0? We're going to add negative 3. And how can we multiply to get negative 3? If we do 3 minus 3 times 1, that'll give us 0. So the pattern there is we're taking the number in row 2 minus 3 times the number in row 1, and we're going to put the answer into row 2. So that's going to be 3 minus 3 times 1. That'll be 0. I'm just going to copy down the first row here. Let's go to the next column. Negative 2 minus 3 times 1. So free to write it out off to the side. Negative 2 minus 3 times 1. That's going to be negative 5. Third column, 1 minus 3 times negative 1. That will become 4. And then the constants column will be negative 1 minus 3 times 3. That'll become negative 10. The last row won't change. Okay, so now we're going to work on this 2. Remember, we're going down the staircase. We've got our 1, we've got our 0. Now we're going to make that 2 a 0. It would become a 0 if we had 2 minus 2. We can get that by multiplying the number in row 1 by 2. So the pattern here is row 3 minus 2 times row 1. Let's put the answer in row 3. Rows 1 and 2 are not changing, so we're copying them. Very carefully copying. You want to make sure you take every negative sign with you. Third row. So first column, 2 minus 2 times 1. Negative 1 minus 2 times 1. 3 minus 2 times negative 1. So that's going to be 3 plus 2. That one took me a minute. And then we have 0, right? 0 minus 2 times 3. So that'll give us negative 6. Okay, so we are going down the staircase. Imagine there's a staircase here. We've gone everything in the first column, so now we're going to work on that negative 5. We want it to be a 1, so if we just divide by negative 5, we'll get 1. Instead of writing division, we're just going to write the fraction, negative 1/5. We're going to take that, keep it right in row 2. So row 1 is not changing, row 3 is not changing. Okay, 0 divided by negative 5, negative 5 divided by negative 5, 4 divided by negative 5, and negative 10 divided by negative 5. Don't panic about that fraction. Okay, now let's work on this negative 3. We're trying to get everything in the second column to look like our REF. So we have negative 3. If we could add 3 to that, we would get 0. So we could get 3 by either multiplying this one or this one by 3. But be strategic. You worked really hard to get the 0 here. If you use the first row, it'll mess up your 0. So you want to avoid using that. You want to use the row that has the 0 in it already so you don't mess anything up. So R3 plus 3 times R2. That'll give us that 0 right here that we're looking for. Put the answer into R3. So row 1 is not changing. Row 2 is not changing. Row 3, I'm going to take the value in row 3, and I'm going to add 3 times row 2. So 0 plus 3 times 0, still 0. Negative 3 plus 3 times 1. Negative 3 plus 3 times 1, that's 0. 5 plus 3 times negative 4/5. Don't cry yet. You can do it. You can put it in your calculator, but you guys are better than that. This actually is part of why we did our summer assignment with the fractions, okay? So we have 5 plus, and I'm going to multiply those numerators, negative 12 over 5. Okay, if I want to add fractions, I want them to have the same denominator of 5. That's really 25 over 5 plus negative 12 over 5. Now that they have the same denominator, add them up. 25 minus 12 is 13. So this value is 13 over 5. And then we also need to do this last number. So we have R3, which was negative 6 plus 3 times R2. So we have negative 6 plus 3 times R2. That's going to be 0. Okay. One more step down the staircase. Now we're going to work on making that a 1. Easiest way to make it a 1, we're going to multiply it by its reciprocal. So we're going to multiply row 3 by 5 over 13. Put the answer into row 3. First 2 rows don't change. Third row, 0 times anything, 0. 5/13 times 0, still 0. 5/13 times 13/5, 1. 5/13 times 0, still 0. Okay, so we've got our row echelon form. Now this is where the Gauss-Jordan elimination kicks in, and we're ready for reduced row echelon form. So now that we've gone down the staircase, we're going to go back up it. So we're going to start with that negative 4/5. We want that to be 0. So we need to add 4/5 to it. The easiest way to do that is to take this one here, multiply it by 4/5. So we are taking 4/5 of row 3 and adding it to row 2. I know the fractions are intimidating. Don't be afraid to use your calculator here. Everything's going to work out. Okay, so row 1 is not changing. It's still 1, 1, negative 1, 3. Row 3 won't change. But row 2 will. We're going to take 4/5 of row 3. So 4/5 of 0 plus 0, still 0. Not too bad. 4/5 of 0 plus 1, still 1. 4/5 of 1 is 4/5 plus negative 4/5 is 0. And then the last column, 4/5 of 0 is 0 plus 2 is 2. See, those fractions nicely went away. How kind of them. So let's keep going up the staircase. Now we're going to work here. You want that negative 1 to be 0. What do you add to negative 1 to get 0? You add 1. So we're going to take the 1 from row 3. So our strategy here is to take row 3, add it to row 1, put that answer right into row 1. So 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus negative 1 is 0. 0 plus 3 is 3. The other 2 rows don't change. It's getting so close to that answer. Okay, we've gone down the staircase. We've gone back up the staircase. We've got one value left. We want to turn that 1 into a 0. I can take row 1, subtract row 2. And that'll give me that 0 right there. Put the answer in row 1. So 1 minus 0 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 minus 0, 0. 3 minus 2, 1. Other rows don't change. Okay, so we are now in RREF. And what's nice about RREF if there's no back substitution required, there's our solution. X equals 1, y equals 2, z equals 0. And if we go back up to the very top, we're going to see that that's the solution that we were looking for.